Welcome everyone. The second day of this workshop. We had a very successful day yesterday. Lots of folks attending. Great remarks by Margaret. And today the plan is for us to start this with a quick set of remarks from Professor Gurdip Singh. I'll introduce him briefly. And then we'll be followed by a keynote by Sir Roy Anderson. Then we'll go into our breakout sessions. And at the end, we will summarize the outcomes of the breakout session, followed by closing remarks by the organizing committee and from Arvind Gyanchandani, who is the deputy to the CISE director here at NSF. So with that, let me begin by welcoming Professor Gurdip Singh. Gurdip has joined NSF CISE as a division director since March 2020, and he's a professor at Syracuse University as well as associate dean for research and graduate programs. Gurdip is an accomplished scholar in distributed and embedded systems, including synchronization synthesis, network protocols, compositional design analysis techniques, and configurable middleware systems. He has over 90 peer-reviewed conference proceedings and publications. He has received a number of awards for his work, research, as well as teaching. He's a past recipient of the NSF Career Award and an NSF Research Initiation Award winner as well. Gurdip serves on the editorial board of multiple journals, has served as co-organizers or program chair for several conferences, workshops, or symposia. And he finally serves on the board of directors of the American Society for Engineering Education's Engineering Research Council. So please join me in welcoming Gurdip. Gurdip, thank you so much for joining us today, and we look forward to listening to your opening comments.
Thank you. Thank you, Madhav. So good afternoon, everyone. Good morning to some of you, based and depending upon where you are. So on behalf of NSF, CISE, and CNS, I welcome you to day 2 of this workshop. Thank you for participating in it. I know this is a particularly busy time with the end of the semester, which is not a typical end of the semester. So there is exams that you have to organize online and a lot of things going on. So really appreciate you joining us today for this workshop. Just wanted to share a few thoughts regarding CISE's and in general NSF response to the COVID-19 crisis. So if you look at our NSF mission, it says to promote the progress of science and in particular to advance our national health, prosperity, and welfare. So the COVID-19 crisis is a threat to national health, prosperity, to our well-being. So clearly the research as per our mission that is supported by CISE and by NSF should be preparing us to deal with such a crisis. So when we look at this particular crisis, 2 infrastructures sort of come to mind. One is our healthcare infrastructure, and second is our networking infrastructure. So those have been 2 critical infrastructures that have been enabling us to move through this crisis. And NSF has been, and particular CISE has been very critical in supporting research for both of these 2 infrastructures. So if you look at, the networking infrastructure, right from the very beginning, NSF played a very crucial role in development of the network internet infrastructure, and we are all constantly looking at future network infrastructure. And same thing in terms of all of the technologies that we have come to bear upon making our healthcare infrastructure more strong and resilient. So in short, CISE has been very well prepared and supporting these 2 infrastructure systems. But of course, when such a crisis comes, it's a good point to sort of look at and identify, are we missing something? Are there research gaps that are there? So it sort of gives us a moment to do some introspection, sort of for the community to identify where do we, what kind of things that we do. So looking at, NSF response to COVID-19, again, Margaret covered many of these aspects yesterday. So one of our major ways in which we responded was in funding the rapid grants. And this is a mechanism by which we can rapidly progress towards, in short turnaround time, fund some research, which is, again, the purpose of this is to look at have the systems that we develop, let's supply them and see if they work. Is there data that needs to be collected? Are there, gaps that we can identify there? So that's kind of the purpose of the Rapids. And there was, a lot of queries, and we funded well over 125 projects from the CISE director. There were several other initiatives that we took. For instance, one is the Overcome project, which is looking at rural broadband access. So again, this is because right now all of our communities, they are struggling with providing broadband access because students need to learn from home. There is work needs to be done. So how do we look at not just rural broadband, but also underserved communities? So we are looking at pilot projects there on different ways in which we can provide access. So there are many different ways in which we have looked at the research gaps in the infrastructure and responded to that. So in particular, zooming in on the Rapids, again, the mandate that was provided to us was that we were to fund non-medical, non-clinical research as far as the Rapids goes, because the clinical research fell into the domain of NIH. So that's what we were focusing on. So as a result of this Rapid, we funded a whole number of projects in different domains. So for instance, one such set of Rapids was on internet measurement. So one of our program directors, Deep Madi, he sort of came up with this idea that, we want to look at how is our internet performing under duress? What are the different pain points? So there are many different segments that need to be measured, many different characteristics that need to be looked at. So we funded a set of Rapids, which were looking at many different parts of the internet architecture and doing different measurements and coordinating so that we can get a holistic picture of what is our network performance look like? Or is it up to par? Are there things that need to be improved? So they are sort of looking at those, and the idea is that at the end, we'll try to make this data available to the community so that we can then make further progress in designing a more resilient network. Computer systems research, for instance, looked at wearables, sensor systems, look at computing on the edges in order to do federated contact tracing or doing testing in a much more distributed manner. So, different aspects of this were being funded by computer systems research. The secure SATC program, they looked at areas in which, as you are trying to do this, are there privacy concerns, security concerns that are there? How can we share data without exposing personal information? There were other security threats because we are working more from home. We are more prone to malware, cyber behavior, online cyber violence that's there, misinformation. So number of things that are happening just because of this situation that we are presented in. So many of the Rapids are sort of looking at that. There are Rapids that we have funded in the area of machine learning, modeling, which fall in the IIS division, for instance. So overall, this is just a sampling of the large number of Rapids that we had funded. So again, the purpose of the Rapids is to, look at applying some of the techniques that we have already developed onto the problem at hand, collecting data, and these are typically, 1 year in duration. But what we want to do is to really think beyond this. Okay, we want to say, okay, how are we looking beyond these Rapids? Are we sort of synergizing things? For example, if you look at the network measurement Rapids, they really need to talk to each other. You don't want one of them sort of measuring data at the scale of hours and the other is measuring data at the granularity of days. You really want them to synchronize and synergize so that they are sort of working together. So we are trying to sort of look at, how do we synergize the efforts that we are there? And that's where this Prepare project comes into picture. And again, I want to first thank James and Indrajit for sort of initially coming up with this idea, and Nina Amla as well for initially coming up this idea, and then the leadership of Madhav, Anil, Simon, and Lee in taking that particular idea, putting it into a proposal, and then executing it. Right now, they're executing the project. So I really want to thank them for their leadership in doing this. And the whole idea behind this particular project is to provide a forum to facilitate data sharing, software tools, identification of what are the collaboration opportunity, cross-fertilization of ideas, and also a research roadmap. So we are really wanting to see, what do we do next? So we don't want to, as I said, we want to think beyond the rapids. So we are really looking at, what kind of proposals do we want to see coming into our core programs next year, or what new programs do we need to spin off? So that's going to be informed by the research roadmap that's going to be coming out of this project. So really looking forward, what we are trying to look at this particular forum again. It's an idea coming, where the PIs are coming, presenting their posters and sharing what they have done. So that's one aspect of it. But really, our goal over here is that it needs to be a forum for sharing your ideas and amplifying your results. So we want to see collaborations coming out of it so that you see what others are doing, collaborate, and submit perhaps larger proposals to us. And again, as I said, the research roadmap, again, we will get a research roadmap at the end of 2 years, 3 years, this project goes on. But during that process also, we want to be listening. So I see the research roadmap as a continuous process. So we want to be continuously listening to the community, and so that we get feedback from them and we are incorporating it dynamically. So that's the kind of things that we are looking out of from this project, so that we can periodically come, share the ideas, and amplify. So those were the thoughts I wanted to share. Again, I want to thank you all for coming and participating in this workshop, and wish you the best for the rest of it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gurdip. Really appreciate it.
I see one question from Andy Rasmussen, who'd like to know, what was the distribution of rapid projects across subdivisions or programs in CISE?
So the distribution was, again, so the way the funds were allocated were based upon the proposals that were submitted. So we had an open call and we received proposals, proposal ideas from the community. And based upon the proposal ideas that were submitted, we had allocated the funds. I know that IIS and CNS did receive a large number of proposals, so they got more funding, and next was CCF. So overall, our goal was that all of the worthy ideas that we wanted to fund, we did fund. So in the end, let me put it that way, that if there were ideas that felt that they had merit, need to be funded, we actually came up with funds, not just from the ones that were allocated under the CARES Act, but all of the divisions and the programs, they kicked in their own funds to make sure that all of the deserving projects were funded.
We have one more question from Chowi Yang. Is there a follow-up program for COVID-19 to integrate a potential structure for future preparation?
So that's the whole idea of the research roadmap, right? So we don't have a program as such yet. We are welcoming proposals into our core programs during this coming year. So any ideas that you have, which are either follow-up on your rapid projects or otherwise, we welcome them into the ongoing programs. As we develop this research roadmap and we hear back through this Prepare project and otherwise, we'll then try to see, okay, does it make sense to have a separate program? Or are the things already covered? So it might turn out that, there might be things that are cross-divisional. There are things that are needed to across divisions. So we may either spin up a new program, or we have a DCL saying, okay, we are interested in these topics, submit to our core programs. So we will come up with mechanisms, but again, in the short term, what I would suggest is that if you have ideas to submit, talk to the program directors, even if they span across multiple divisions, talk to the program directors, and we are going to be very willing to hear from that in the short term. But in the long term, we'll come up with some mechanisms.
So Gurdip, thank you very much. I want to thank the NSF, James, Indrajit, Nina, Wendy, and Mitra. This is a partnership between us as research community and NSF. And we're very keen to develop a roadmap that incorporates the interests and the suggestions from the entire community. And we'll try to get this to you folks as soon as we can, so that NSF can think about mechanisms to continue this, because I think strongly that in the end we'll have to sustain this effort. Otherwise we'll be left 1 feet short again for responding to the next pandemic. So thank you again.
Yep, very welcome. Thank you.